Welcome to the Pastured Pig Podcast,
where we share the successes and challenges of raising pigs on pasture.
We talk to producers all over the country,
From small homesteads to large commercial pasture operations.
Whether you're new to pastured pigs or have been raising hogs for decades,
We hope you hear new ideas and new perspectives on pasturing hogs.
here's your host, Troy McClung.
Well, hello everyone. It's time again for another episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. It's just really been fun doing these episodes and putting this podcast together. It's exciting to see the growth. It's exciting to see you all comment and share it on different Facebook groups and other platforms there, just having discussions. So I really appreciate that. That means a lot to us to see people respond positively to our efforts. Well, before we get into our interview, I want to just give some quick updates. As you're hearing this podcast, if you downloaded on the day that it came live, it would be July 3rd, so a day before the 4th of July, which is our Independence Day for all of us Americans. You Canadians, you kind of get what's going on there. Our friends over in England, our British friends that are listening to it, yes, we are still celebrating treason 200 years later. My grandmother was British, and she moved to the United States after the war, and she loves Independence Day, or did. She's no longer with us, but she loved Independence Day, even being British. Well, as you get around the July 4th, that's kind of a benchmark on the farm. You kind of get an idea of, okay, how far are we? It's almost like halfway in a marathon. How far are we? Are we reaching the goals that we want to reach? Do we have we met all of the needs? Are we where we need to be? And I always find myself saying, no, I'm very, very far behind. And that's the case still this year, but I guess that's what keeps you on your toes. Sitting out here right now, actually on the front porch. I don't know if you can hear the subtle rain in the background, but we are still dealing with some rain. But it's been a good summer so far. We'll actually take some time off. Actually, as you're listening to this, we'll be on the road going up to our camp that we have in the higher elevations, the higher mountains of West Virginia, where we will enjoy the holiday weekend with family and just be relaxing and enjoying the cooler weather and the higher elevations. We also like to go, it's tradition that we go to a farm called White Oak Farm. And it's up in a place called Rennick, West Virginia, and they have like 40 acres of blueberries. And actually, it's a 40-acre farm with 20 acres of blueberries. And we go up there to blueberry pick. It's a pick-your-own setup, really neat setup. Max, the gentleman that runs it, is a really nice guy. We actually did a video detailing his setup, how he runs his blueberry operation. It's his sole source of income. And we did post that on our YouTube channel. If you want to check that out, I'll put a link to that down in the show notes. Speaking of our channel, we do have our homesteading channel called Red Tool House Homestead. So if you're interested in things broader than the pig topic, we obviously discuss pigs on that as well, but we're broader and document what we have going on here in the foothills of southern West Virginia. So check that out if you're interested. Well, as I mentioned, we'll dive into our interview. I want to give a little intro into to our guest today. April Prussia is with Dorthy's Range, and that's in Wisconsin. And she's got a really interesting story. I hope you all will enjoy this discussion as much as I did. She is a vegetarian turned pig farmer. And she'll get into the details of that, but kind of the overview. For health reasons, she decided to turn away from the vegetarian diet. She needed to have more calories. She needed to have more intake there. So switched to an omnivore diet and decided, hey, if I'm going to eat meat, I don't want to partake in the factory-raised CAFO process. I want to be responsible for my own protein source there. So it was really neat how she decided to do that and take that step into raising pigs. She raises GOS for breeding and for production and for finishing. She and her partner are working diligently in an area of prairie restoration on her farm and discusses that in detail with us. It's really interesting to hear what's going on there in Wisconsin. She also offers on-farm stays, and she takes some time to discuss the value-added services that she brings to her farm with those stays and with something she calls Fair to Fork catering. So we'll not give any more of the secrets away there. We'll dive right in and let April tell us the story. Okay, I'm excited this evening to have April Prussia from Dorthy's Range on our podcast tonight, and we're going to talk about her setup and operation that she has. Welcome, April.
Thanks. Good to be here.
All right. Well, okay, so where is Dorthy's Range geographically?
Dorothy's Range is in the driftless area of southwestern Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Okay, so you guys probably get a little bit of snow up in that neck of the woods then.
We sure do, and the pigs are okay with it. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, tell us a little bit about Dorthy's Range, and kind of, if you don't mind, go back as far as you dare, and kind of tell us what got you into farming.
Oh, sure. That's big. You're daring me. Been doing pigs for about 8 or 9 years. Prior to that, I was a vegetarian. Did the CSA farm, organic, bedding plants, managed 40 acres of a vegetable farm, and then kind of found my way to this part of Wisconsin. And for health reasons, decided to not be a vegetarian, and thought, well, hey, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. And if you want to do it right, you just kind of do it yourself, or you try to do it yourself. So that led me to just getting a couple feeder pigs. And I guess that's where the pig adventure started. What does that bring up for you?
So that's interesting. So, wow, there's several things to unpack there. So the vegetarian, so health issues, and I've heard that multiple times. In fact, I've heard it multiple times this week. Different conversations, and I think it was more of a vegan, going from a vegan to a omnivore diet. That there were some health issues there. So when that realization came, that was it your doctor, or just kind of something inside said, hey, maybe if I tried incorporating some meat into my diet, this could help?
Sure. Well, I was farming, and as we know, farming is very labor intensive, especially organic farming. So just to have enough calories to keep me going, I was anemic and really wasn't getting enough B12. So that was told to me from my doctor. And I've always, well, not always, but for quite some time have been very health conscious. And I knew there was nothing wrong with eating meat. I just didn't like the way that meat was being produced. So it was just a matter of seeing how the right way, meeting some local farmers and seeing that it's okay. And then there was also the allergies, like, not being sensitive to gluten and having dairy sensitivities and having inflammation issues with legumes, which is a go-to for a lot of vegetarians and vegans. So it was kind of a matter of needing calories from sources that I wasn't allergic to or sensitive to. So that's kind of where it all started. Yeah.
Well, excellent. Okay. Well, I love that attitude. So it was an ethical raising practice, the ethics of why you were kind of staying away from meat. You discovered health issues, moving over to raising those. And I love the fact that you say, well, why co-op this? Why send this out? Let's do this ourselves. So you decided at that point, okay, I'm going to start producing my own protein. Why did you pick pigs first?
Well, I had another farmer friend that we did CSA vegetable trades and fruit trades with, and she was raising pigs, and she kept telling me, her name was Kristen, and she kept telling me, like, hey, I think that you guys really enjoy pigs. Like, you should raise pigs. Like, these pigs they're just a hoot to be around, a joy to be around, and they're tasty. You should think about raising pigs. And she just kind of planted that seed. And from that point, yeah, we just kind of went with that. I was raising chicken already. I feel like chicken's kind of the gateway animal. I was raising chickens just for eggs, and thought, well, hey, pigs, you don't have to raise them for years like cattle. And so that seemed more doable. And so that's kind of how it all started. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's we can relate to that. Chickens are definitely the gateway animal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what breed did you start with, and why did you go in that direction?
Sure. Well, my partner and I, he's an ecologist. I'd like to consider myself an ecologist too, but probably not as much so as he. When we decided we wanted to raise pork, there were several things that we wanted from our pigs. We wanted delicious meat. We wanted to help a heritage breed, and we wanted something that was light on the earth. And so we came up with a spreadsheet of our criteria, and we started checking them off. And our number one pig that came up was the middle white pig, and they're not even in America. So we kind of got shut down pretty quick when we started making phone calls looking for the middle white pig, which is an excellent grazer and pretty light on the earth. So then next came up was the large blacks. And so we decided that we wanted to try the large blacks, and then we came up to the barrier of, oh wait, there's not really a lot of large blacks around here. So we ended up traveling down to Missouri and picked up our first 3 feeder pigs from Missouri, 2 of which were large blacks, and the other one was a large black mixed with a GOS, a Glasgow spot. And we did that in our little station wagon Toyota Corolla with a dog crate in the back. And I think it was about a 15-hour trip there, 15 hours back. And That was our first introduction to pigs.
Had to drive with the windows down for a while, I assume.
Yeah. And it's warmer when you go south, Yeah.
Well, I laugh because I did the exact same thing. I brought 3 pigs. Of course, I didn't have a 15-hour drive. I had a 1-hour drive.
Nice.
That was almost too much to bear. Between the squealing and the odor, it definitely made the road trip a little longer than I expected.
It breaks you in.
It does. It quickly shows that if you're going to commit to this, you're going to have to commit to a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, excellent. So those 3 that you started with, were those gilts? Were those sows that were pregnant? Were there any of them boars?
2 castrated boys, barrows, and then 1, the large black GOS was a gilt, which I didn't even know those terms when we started. So, Yep, that's what we ended up with to start with. And then, we really enjoyed them and kind of noticed the difference between the 2 of them, and decided, hey, after we had butchered the pigs, it just felt like the area, the space where they were, you go back up to the pasture and go to their little paddock, and it was just empty. There was no life there after we took their lives and we were eating them for our livelihood. But yeah, so that was, we decided that we wanted to not have to travel to Missouri often, and we decided we wanted to go ahead and get a breeding pair so that we could offer other people in the area pigs of this breed. And so then we went down the following year and picked up a breeding pair of large blacks.
Yeah, so you've been breeding from that same pair since, or of course it's been 8 years. You probably have gotten new
yeah, well, we really like that mix too, that large black GOS, and we got our breeding pair, and we thought, well, our boar, he needs to have more work than one lady. So the first litter that they produced, Roxy and Pretty Boy, were the first of our adventure for our breeding pair. We picked up a GOS gilt up north, and added so that our boy had two girls to hang with. And then after Roxy's first litter, we traded a gilt for another gilt from another farm. And so then we soon had 3 girls for our boy, and just kind of started working from there. And then we've transitioned, actually. We found that, we loved large blacks, but we started to have, I guess we were impressed with how the GOS were as grazers, and how our Dorthy girl, our first GOS, we were really impressed with her mothering capabilities and just even her efficiency. Like, I was running a CSA garden at that point, and she would go straight for the vegetables, really quick after feed. So we liked that. She had that piece and part in her. So she was a great grazer, a great mother. And so then slowly we've started to kind of phase out the large blacks, and I actually realized that there weren't any GOS breeders here in Wisconsin or in Iowa or really in the Midwest. So that was our next mission, was just to kind of help breed out, get more people familiar with the GOS, and just bring them here and have them available.
Oh, excellent. Well, you had mentioned this a little earlier, but maybe let's unpack that to some degree. So the GOS, not really in that area as much. How have you had to make any certain adaptations or any special allocations for having the GOS in your climate in the winter?
Absolutely not. No, they're awesome. Well, the first one that we got, Dorthy, she came up from up north, and then we got one from down south, another one from Ohio. But no, I feel like because they're pretty hardy, I think they have a nice bit of back fat on them. They're just a hardy pig, just like the large blacks. Maybe they don't get. They're more prone to get sunburn, and we live kind of in the prairie, so they're more prone to getting sunburn than the large blacks. But definitely no problem in the winter. They're nice and fatty and beautiful nest makers. So no problems there at all.
Excellent. In your experience with the GOS, how long are you seeing? How long is it taking to finish out a GOS to what you would consider your market weight or your processing weight?
Sure, that's tricky. Definitely less than a pure large black, and we started off with mixes. The large black GOS mix, and the mix, of course, had the hybrid bigger. They would definitely feed out sooner, but I'm not your average. I like to grow them slow. I like to really utilize pasture. I really want those omega-3s and the vitamin D in my animals and that red marbled meat. So I take them over 300 pounds, which of course is you're not going to do in 6 months, like the traditional pig at 250 pounds, 6 months. So it kind of varies because we do spring and a fall litter. Most of my fall litters are what I produce for pork, and the spring pigs I sell to other people that are wimps and can't handle pigs through the winter.
That's right.
So that's kind of how I figured out my market. And to be honest, we haven't had a lot of GOSs that we've finished out, pure ones that we've finished out, because I've been selling them, and we're just selling them as feeder pigs and breeding stock. We've had a couple, and I would say 300 pounds, 9 months. That's where we're at with the GOSs, and there's definitely some wiggle room in there.
Yeah, well, that's not bad for what's technically considered a heritage breed. You hear some of the heritage breeds take 12 months to 18 months, depending on the type of breed, but that's not bad at all.
Sure, and the large blacks, I would raise them for 12 months to get them up to that 300. And I don't do unlimited feed either. I do rations. I want my pigs to graze, and if you just give them candy all day, they're not going to go out and eat their vegetables. That's
right. Yeah, it adds a little element of labor to that, but I agree that definitely makes their diet more diversified.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about your setup for a little bit. So with your hogs, how many do you have? Would you say on average throughout the year would you have on farm? That's always fluctuating. I would say
6 to 8 sows and a boar or 2. And then, of course, with that comes their litters, and so that fluctuates. When I have 5 sows that have litters, I can have 100 pigs, and that, when they're all born. So yeah, that fluctuates. I harvest about 15 pigs a year, 15 to 18 hogs a year.
And then the rest you're selling for people to grow out themselves.
Say that again?
And so, and the rest of those then are the ones that you're selling for people to raise themselves, I assume.
Exactly. Breeding stock and feeder pigs. I have a huge, I just can't keep up with the demand in the spring. So many people want feeder pigs in the spring, and they want the heritage, and more people are becoming familiar with the GOS, and they want them. So I can't keep up with the demand. Yeah,
that's great. So, so with 5 sows that you breed, and you said a spring and fall farrowing, so all 5 sows you're breeding them twice a year.
Mm-hmm. Yep, as long as they participate. Yep.
Okay. What kind of litter are you getting out of those sows?
It depends. This year I kind of changed my feed rations, and I think that really that changed their litter number. But anywhere from 7 to 12. We had some record breakers this year. We had one. Sally had 18, and I think Mountain Mama had 15 or 16. They weren't all born alive, but I added baleage in this year, and I think it spiked my numbers. So something I'm kind of trying to study and figure out how and why, and if I want to keep doing it.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. So your setup, you talked about, excuse me, you talked about your pastures, a rotational process, I assume?
Yeah, yes and no. It depends on the season, how much rain we're getting, if I need to break it up. And then I have permanent paddocks down here, down close to the house. So I do rotate the fall feeder pigs early. Like I just moved some pigs up to the pasture, and they're just in one area now, but then I will expand that. Last year, my intention was to rotate them through. I had 13 feeder pigs in one particular area, and I thought I was going to rotate them and create 4 paddocks. And we had great rains, and the pasture was looking really good, and I didn't want to have to mow it. So they just manage it themselves, and they did a wonderful job. So my intention was to rotate it, but there was no need. I was pretty land rich and green rich with the rain.
Well, yeah, and if the GOS doesn't root and doesn't destroy the pasture as much as a conventional hog would, then yeah, there's really not a lot of detriment to your ground to have them in that one spot.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I have. Mine are Duroc, so they're like little bulldozers at times. So we have to keep them moving.
Okay. Yeah, it's always fascinating to kind of visit other farms and see how it can look different and manifest into something different.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the pictures on your website, and maybe we'll segue into this. Just some beautiful pasture land. It looks like relatively flat, rolling. I would say in West Virginia, I would say it's extremely flat, but I assume it's probably more rolling. Looking at the pictures, West Virginia, everything's vertical. But so on your website, you talk about this pasture regeneration efforts or prairie regeneration efforts. Talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind.
If anybody knows anything about prairie restoration, it's a really long process to restore the prairie. But there's all sorts of strategies that they use out west with burning and grazing cattle, and really utilizing animals to eat cool season grasses. So there's place and space for the native prairie warm season grasses and forbs, so they can see the sunshine and they can get that soil to seed contact. So we're basically there's a few areas that we're trying the pigs out with that, and even to the point there's some areas where they do break up the sod, the quack grass and the smooth brome, and when they are moved off of that area, interseeding that with warm season grasses and forbs in the fall. So that's something we've been kind of playing with. It's a long process, so there's one area that I feel like next year we'll really be able to see if it's working. There's one area that we did 3 years ago. It's been 3 years since they've been on, a very large area. We had the density was really low, and we have quite a few like little blue and side oats coming up. But it's hard to tell if the pigs helped with that or if the burn helped with that. So I think in the next couple of years, it'll be interesting to see this one particular paddock that I've had them on and off and have been interseeding a lot of different natives in. So we have 70 acres, and I would say that 60 plus acres are set aside here for ecological restoration that are basically being restored back to the native ecosystem. So.
Wow. So is that in conjunction? So you've defined that specific acreage as saying we're going to do this process. Is that something that's with any type of foundation or government assistance where you're kind of dedicating that and there's outside influence there, or is that just something that you all do internally and say, hey, this is what we're going to try and we're going to go through these processes?
Well, it started off as a group effort with myself and Steve, my partner. He actually does ecological restoration. He has a business. He does prairie restoration, removes invasives, and doing prairie burns right now in the spring. So this definitely came up initially from him, and since our pork, since we started raising pigs, he's kind of backed off of being involved in the pig production. He has more employees now and is kind of more committed to ecological restoration. So it's kind of shifted. In the beginning, it was his idea, and we figured out a plan to make it happen. We looked at other models, like I said, how they do that out in the West with cattle. And then since then, he's kind of backed off, and there's a few pockets that just from what I've learned from him over the years that I'm applying those bits and pieces of information that I've gleaned from him and his practices that I'm implementing in. And I also feel like there's just even little bits and pieces that I've learned being a gardener and understanding, what weeds behave what way, and then how the pigs are going to relate to those weeds, like lamb's quarter and pig's weed, and I don't need to worry about those, and they actually are advantageous to me in restoration efforts, but not velvet leaf, because they won't eat the velvet leaf, but actually velvet leaf's only an annual, and it's not really that aggressive. So it's like all these parts and pieces added together, but it's definitely started with Steve and his passion for prairie restoration.
Wow, that's great. That sounds extremely interesting. Again, that's something I know nothing about with prairie, being here in the Appalachian Mountains, but that's really interesting.
Sure. Well, and the more I learn, the out west, there's areas where they're finishing cattle off on big blue stem, and that big blue stem has a value, like a 16% value in protein. So, I also feel like there's potential of even utilizing and using native plants rather than these invasive plants that we farmers typically are always introducing,
Yeah, I was going to say, do you all encounter any autumn olive out there in Wisconsin by chance?
We do, yeah. Actually, Yeah, not right where we're at, but just 30 miles away. Yep, definitely.
Yeah, that's taking over quite a bit of the old farmland in our neck of the woods. I wondered if that was as invasive as it is here.
Do the pigs like it?
What's really interesting? They do, especially when some will produce berries, and when they produce fruit, I've seen my sows just completely ride a bush over, and they've got some nice little spike thorn elements on it, and they'll just ride it down and then just wail on it. So anywhere that I have pigs access to pasture, or we're more of a woodlot, then they take care of the autumn olive. It's the areas that I don't have them that it's taking off too badly.
Cool.
Yeah, they clean up everything. Well, let's man, there's so much neat stuff on your website that I want to get into, and while this is a Pastured Pig podcast, I love the discussion we have with our guests about the value-added services on their farm that aren't directly related to pastured pigs, or maybe indirectly related, and I think you have some of those here looking through the notes. So let's talk about your farrow to fork catering a little bit.
Sure. Well, actually, that started off a couple years ago. It's something I'd been wanting to do just so that I could present pork as I think it should be, not draining off all the fat and having, it not being overcooked and that sort of thing. And there's a group of women farmers that I'm basically in my farm hood that have an annual event called the Soil Sisters Tour. And it's a weekend event, and I kind of got peer pressured into doing the farm to table component that weekend. And so I got my license and became all official so that I could partake and be that the chef, I guess, for the Soil Sisters weekend. So since that took place, I do that annually now. I think this will be my 4th year, and I also do just some small 20 to 30 people, just little gigs here and there, just where I can feature. It's all local. I try to have a local theme. It's not just my pork, but that's definitely the star on the plate. Last year, actually had at the farm to table dinner for the Soil Sisters. I really wanted to show folks maybe the less common part of the pig. I always like to educate people. I don't think very many people know how big a tenderloin is on a pig, or so I actually had a roasted hog head on the table for the appetizer, and did a few different cuts, and really promoted lard, because I feel like that's something that's been lost over the last 20 years, and we really need to praise the lard. The lard is our local oil here, and if it's raised right, it's healthy. Exactly. So kind of want to bring it back, like we brought back butter. Butter was, we were cussing out butter for so long, and now butter's back. So let's bring back the lard.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of lard. We render every year.
Good, yeah.
Okay, so that obviously introduces people to your pork. Obviously, it gives you an opportunity. I assume when you're doing that on farm, some of those events are on farm. Then that's a revenue generator for you. So that helps kind of feed the habit there as far as the farming elements go.
Yeah, and an opportunity to educate people and teach people about the importance of eating local, choosing heritage meats, and small farms. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see a lot with your customer base there? Do you see that disconnect that seems to be so prevalent now, where people just are so disconnected from their food, they just don't understand some of the basics?
Heck yeah. Well, we do farm stays too, and so many times I love the questions people have. I just love the questions. They're great questions. Yeah, people have no idea how long it takes for an animal to be raised. They look at an animal and they don't. They see. We have some 2-week-old pigs on the ground, and they're asking if they're 5 months old, and just really, really simple questions. Even just the fact that we have, chickens out here, and people don't know that chickens lay an egg, like chickens ovulate every single day, and the fact that a pig can have 12 babies in 114 days, and that 98% of the pork, I think that number is still accurate, 98% of the pork produced in America is of a factory style, and that when they visit our place and they see our facility, our pastures, that we're the other 2%. And that's pretty neat to see and connect people with, for sure.
Yeah, it is interesting, and I like what you said there about really enjoy the questions, and I would agree that it seems that people ask questions, and sometimes they're pensive to ask because they think, well, I think this is going to be a dumb question, but you want to encourage them to ask it anyway. And one of my favorite interactions was a customer that wanted to buy a whole hog off of me. He wanted to have it processed, but he said, I want it all to be bacon. That's my favorite, and so I just want an all bacon pig. And I just remember he was serious as anything in the conversation of, buddy, if I could raise an all bacon pig, I'd be a millionaire.
Right. Yeah. But then you teach people about the other cuts, and they don't want it to be all bacon. You get a good shoulder roast, and you don't want to give that up for bacon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we had a get together one time and brought out some jowl bacon and let everybody try it. They loved it, and of course afterwards we told them exactly what it was. So it's fun.
Yeah, it is. I call that top shelf bacon. Because I used to be a bartender, and you got your top shelf liquors, and that's right there. It's right on the top of the pig.
Exactly.
Top shelf bacon.
Awesome. Well, you touched on it briefly there. Tell us a little more about Farm Stay. So how do you accommodate people coming out to the farm and spending a couple days with you?
Sure. Well, we used to be landlords, and we have two different living quarters. Well, we have 3 different living quarters. We live in one. Steve's mom, Dottie, that's where Dorthy's range comes from, is Dorthy. Steve's mom, she moved to Florida, and since then we were landlords, and then we started to Airbnb out our space, and people will come out here and stay for sometimes it's just one night, sometimes it's a week, it's their whole vacation. A lot of people from Chicago, a few people from Milwaukee, but most people from the city. They just want to get away. They want to check out the prairie. They want to see the pigs, and we have a couple cool breweries in the area. So, it doesn't take much. I mean, all they need to do is see those pigs and piglets and see the chickens free ranging, and we always toss some eggs in the refrigerator and have some pork in the freezer if they want to buy pork to add to the bacon. I mean, if they want to add some bacon to their eggs. Yeah. So that's kind of the gist of it.
Do you put them to work?
Well, people think they want to help, but
right, yeah.
I don't know. Occasionally carry a bucket, collect the eggs, and then there's always pigs are really physical. They're very physical animals, and I'm a $110, but I know how to hold myself when I'm wrestling a bucket of feed. But I can't expect that from our guests.
Right.
But definitely give them that feeling that they're helping out.
Exactly. So invite them over on castration day and say, "Here we go."
Oh yeah, good idea. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, one other thing in the notes here that I really want to talk about is apple finish. You had in your notes that I didn't know if it was an on-farm cidery or a local cidery that you're using to take advantage of supplementing some of the feed for your pigs.
Sure. I have some friends that just opened up the first hard cider tap house in Wisconsin, and they have 12 different ciders on tap, and they press their apples and they deliver them over here, and I feed them to the pigs, and then those pigs are processed, and I sell Brick Cider, the cider house. I sell them back the ground pork that has been finished on their apple pressings, and it's pretty magical. And actually, they just opened up their facility this year, and I was like, "Can I work there for a little bit? I want to throw out these bratwursts and tell people that they came from my pigs." And so that's been fun, and
No doubt.
And a good amount, like a good amount of apple pressings. I wasn't sure if the pigs would figure out, what to do and what to not do. But last year I actually I went down from 2 feedings a day to 1 feeding of grain, rations, unlimited pasture, and then my second feeding would be just all apple pulp.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, I think I love that one. And that's, my goodness, you couldn't ask for anything more to have it delivered to your front door.
I know. Yes.
Excellent. Well, that's
Special.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's got to improve flavor. There's all kinds of good stuff coming out of that.
Yeah, an apple a day, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the hogs that you finish, what are your distribution methods? Are you doing any wholesale? Obviously, you're working with the cidery there. Are you doing any other wholesale? Are you selling retail? Are you doing on-farm sales, online sales?
Sure. I don't do online sales, but I show up at the farmers market, so I really like that connection with the direct connection with the customer. Another reason I wanted to sell the bratwurst at Brick Cider. I have a pretty good account now with the cidery. I have Camp de Bella. They're a farm-to-table farm not too far from here, and they were overachievers when they first started. They thought they needed to grow everything from the farm-to-table wine house. And since then, they've gotten rid of their pigs, so they buy their pork from me. And then, just selling off the farm here to the farmstead guests and farmers market, and then just people that know me, friends from Facebook or just friends in the community, just kind of hop out to the farm and buy a pork package. And that moves a lot of pork. And I have an amazing, when I'm not selling lard for food, I have a friend that makes the best soap ever. She makes a lard soap. I've helped her out a few times, but I also sell lard soap, which is just amazing. Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Well,
I know we didn't talk. We kind of skirted around it, but since we're kind of a pig podcast, but you are a polyculture when it comes to other animals and things you have on the farm, correct?
Well, I just have chickens. Yeah. Worms for the compost.
Yeah.
I don't know if that counts. Yeah.
And then you have a certain element of veg too. So do you do some veg sales at farmers markets as well with your pork?
My garden mostly supplies myself, and then the farm to table food, and then I do offer my farmstead guests a bouquet of kale or collards or basil and tomatoes and zucchini to add to those eggs and bacon that they have in their refrigerator and freezer. So it's kind of evolved into there's not enough to sell at the farmer's market. It just kind of stays here.
That's right. You got to keep the good stuff back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, April, one question I'd like to ask everybody is, what is your best experience or your favorite part about raising pigs on pasture?
To see how much they love it and how they're just so in their element. The joy that, pig has when it gets to run, they want to run and they enjoy running, and seeing them in the wallow, just to see that joy, because I feel like we are what we eat. And if we're eating animals that we need a little more joy in the world. So if we're eating animals that just radiate, happiness and joy, then we're just going to be in a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find when people come out and they interact with a pig, Are they surprised about the personality that the temperament a pig has?
For sure, yeah, and that they're affectionate. Like, people are always surprised, like that, there's this big animal, and if you scratch its back, the pigs get into it. They'll wiggle their backs around, and yeah, people are very surprised. And just that, to see them run, they're, and we have lop-eared pigs, and to see a lop-eared pig run is a little different, Yeah. People definitely, so many people never seen a pig before, and it's like, how often do you eat pork? Like, how can you, I like to make that connection too. Like, how often do you eat turkey? How often do you eat chicken? Why aren't you questioning that you don't see these animals when you leave the city? You should see them everywhere if you're eating them every day. So, yeah.
That's great. Absolutely. Well, April, if people want to find out more information about your farm and your setup, where can they find you?
You can just search me, Dorothy's Range in Wisconsin, and I do have a Facebook account. I try to be kind of savvy with technology and such, but it's not always easy when you're, out in the field and hanging out with pigs and at the farmer's market. But definitely you can find me at Dorothy'sGrange.com.
Excellent. Well, really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us this evening. I enjoyed it, and we'll have to come back around and talk to you later on in the year and just see how things are going with the prairie restoration process as well.
Yeah, pictures with flowers too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, thanks for your time, and thanks for just getting the pig juices going with me. It's always fun to talk pigs, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Well, take care.
See ya.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to thank April again for taking the time to talk with me. I really like talking to producers that are offering value-added services on their farms. It's just a good business sense to have these extra services. They can really supplement your income from time to time. It can keep you from having all your proverbial eggs in that one basket. So I know that's not necessarily directly in line with pastured pigs, but I think it helps the overall production if you have some of these value-added services. And we use that term a lot, value-added, but anytime you can take a product that you would sell in bulk, like our pork, a standing pig is a pork product or as a bulk product, but you can take that as far as catering somebody's party or activity with pork that you've raised, then you can see how you can really add value to that product that you're producing and obviously generate more revenue from that. Well, I'm excited about the interviews we have lined up here in the next couple months. As you all may be aware, I do interviews in batches, so we do a bunch of them and then, of course, parse them out weekly now. And we've just had a really great response to people wanting to come on the podcast and discuss pastured pork with us. And it's really neat to see what we have in the future. We have coming down the pipe, we have a guy that took pigs to New York City to be on the Stephen Colbert Show. Some of you may know who that is already. A guy who has a mobile processing business in New England and talk about the nuances of processing mobily up there. And we also have David Crafton on again. We've heard from him already, but we're going to have him back on to talk specifically about breed choice, how important it is to choose the right breed for your pig operation. Well, if you get a chance, if you like the podcast, please give us a rating. That really helps the podcast gods find us and promote us to others and gets us out there to be seen. If you feel so inclined to write a review, please take the time to type a little note to let us know what you think of the podcast, and we would appreciate that. And again, we just appreciate everyone communicating the positive responses they've had to listening to the podcast. Okay, take care, everybody, and have a great holiday.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. To learn more about our podcast or to submit topics or recommend guests for future episodes,
visit redtoolhouse.com.